started. But previous activities in our country already showed something in this regard. In South Africa, there is a saying born out of this event. It says, if you strike a woman, you strike a rock. They stood there for 30 minutes in total silence. 30 minutes. And then all they did, they sang this song with the meaning with these words. If you strike a woman, you strike a rock. For those that are unfamiliar, past laws were at the heart of South Africa's system of racial segregation. They required black South Africans always to carry a passbook showing where they were allowed to live and work. Moving into or through a white area without the proper stamps could lead to arrest, imprisonment, or forced removal. And then my computer jumps. The Women's March was led by 4 extraordinary women who embodied interfaith and interracial solidarity. I'm just going to name their names and which faith and which race they represented. And in that lies the power of this event. They were Lillian Ngozi, a black trade unionist; Rahima Musa, an Indian shop steward; Francis Bart, a colored labor organizer, and Helen Joseph, a white social worker and activist. Together they carried a petition of more than 100,000 signatures demanding justice for black people under apartheid in South Africa. Many had children on their backs, and they stood in dignity and determination. I've got a minute left, and therefore all I'm going to say, the church that I'm the General Secretary of today, and also the first woman to serve in this position since last year, that church was responsible for apartheid in South Africa. And we are carrying that burden still. But we are also carrying the responsibility to do justice to what was wronged in history. And I have the privilege, since 1991, my church allowed women to be in ministry. Before that, we were not allowed in ministry, and also that transformation took place. There's a big sign in front of me saying stop, and I'm going to obey it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nioma, especially for that history, because some of us, I personally, this is the first time I've heard this. So it's very enlightening, because we need to know some of these stories to be able to move forward. I will now move to our second panelist so that we finish before time. Sister Agnes Njeri. She's the program officer for the Conrad Hilton Foundation in Kenya. And Sister Agnes will be speaking on inclusion of women in leadership and decision making.
Thank you so much, Sister Ngozi. Before even I talk about the inclusion of women, I want to acknowledge that many people know that including women in any decision making is very powerful. But why don't they do that? How many people know the statistics of women and men, or ratio of men to women in the world? We are meant to believe that women are more than men. That's what they think. We are 50-50. But then, when you look at the representation of women in leadership, we are underrepresented. The UN SDG goals, goal number 5 says that women equality should be achieved by 2030. They have cited that there is improvement, but then we don't see that improvement, especially in decision making as well as on the leadership of women. Now, since charity begins at home, let me first say that the Catholic Church has an underrepresentation of women in leadership. But then, thanks be to God, Pope Francis started the revolution. If we remember, late Pope Francis has included, especially the Vatican leadership position ever since Jesus went to heaven. Sister Simona Brambilla, the first prefect of the Dicastery for Institutes of a Consecrated Life, a position that is only held by men, and we call them cardinals. So for us, and besides that, there are other women like Simona Alessandra Smerilli, who is now an undersecretary, a very high position in the Vatican. So we can say that there is at least a slow change in the Catholic Church, but we need more. We cannot compare that with other Christian denominations. But however, we have hope because the Synod is going on, and we are hoping that by the end of the process of Synod and synodality, we are going to have more women included in the leadership or in the Catholic Church. However, we see that women are people who can lead change in societies, in the communities, and from home. What are these things that we are supposed to help women so that they can become leaders? It is intentionally we commit to gender parity in leadership. A good example is in Rwanda. That is the only African country that has 60% of women in parliament. What have they done? Can't we even emulate that? We can stop saying but start doing. We must intentionally invest in girls and women education. What happens when a woman or a girl drops out of school because of becoming a mother? Which are these rules that prohibit her to go back to school? And we only know that statistics say there is a high correlation of education and leadership. So if these girls are not brought back to school, when will they become leaders? We should support women entrepreneurs by improving the access of credit, property rights, because a woman will not till any land if they have no property right, or rather they are taken without a proper seed fund to do that. We were talking about safety of hunger. How can a woman become productive if there is no money for doing that? And remember, women are the people on the ground. We should ensure diverse representation in key forums where major decisions are made. I know 1 minute left, but I want to give you an example. In Kenya alone, 30% of the health care facilities are owned by the Catholic Church. That 1.7 schools are owned by the Catholic Church. But out of this, 99% are run and managed by sisters. But when policies are made about education, about health, we've never seen any sister included in those decisions. How can we make policies of things that women are involved in without them? So nothing's for us without us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Agnes. You have cited those examples, but I also want to say that even here we have to come back home, because this forum, this engagement is about Africa and what we want done. So when we are talking, we bring it back home. Are we able to challenge our bishops, our ministers? I was very happy to hear Naomi say that she's been appointed since last year, the 1st, and this is what we want. We cannot keep saying women are there. You've cited the example of sisters being in charge of schools and hospitals, but I would like to add that the sisters manage and run these institutions, which from the time of Christianity, the hospitality industry was begun by women religious. But as soon as those establishments begin to thrive, I'm sorry to say this, you find that a priest is made administrator so that the sister will remain under him. So it's a patriarchal world, and that is something that we have to address. the patriarchy in the church, the patriarchy in the society is something that we have to address. So with that, I have to go back since we don't have time. I want our guests to also make your own contributions, ask questions as much as we can and the time we have. Now, I'll call on our next panelist, Sister Teresiah Muthoni. She's the legal advisor stroke officer, Archdiocese of Nairobi stroke Hilton Foundation. And Sister will be talking on the disability inclusion and focus on the intersectional discrimination of women with disabilities. I'm very glad to hear that Sister is the legal advisor. I don't know how many priests in Kenya you have that are lawyers, if you're allowed to hold that position in the diocese, but you'll tell us more about that later.
Okay. So thank you very much, Sister Ngozi, for this opportunity. And I will diverge from what they have been talking and try and talk about disability inclusion and just reflect on this seminar that we have, this conference that we have. I don't know whether you have seen any person with physical challenges, and that is how much without our consciousness we ignore persons with disability, not with any evil intention. It's just that we don't put them at the back of our mind to know that they are part of our society. The second thing I want to bring to your attention is that in most cases, we who consider ourselves abled are the persons who create disability. So if you look at the definition of the disability from the conventions of persons with living with disability, CPRD, they says it is people who are physically challenged in their interaction with the surroundings. So you will find a very good building, but it is all stairs going up or going down. So the person building the house, if he cannot afford the elevator, it doesn't concern him. So that means that at the fore of his mind, he does not consider that what happened to a person who is physically challenged who want to access this building. So the world population of the world with disability is 1.3 billion that you can get anytime. So you can imagine in a world of around 7 billion, ignoring 1.3 billion of persons and what they can bring at table. That is really, for me, something that is not right. Then the second part of disability that worries me, especially as a lawyer, is the legal incapacitation of persons with disability. And you know, disability is either physical or mental. So you will find that persons with mental disability are incapacitated by law. I don't know the laws of your country, but for the international laws that I have studied, you'll find that the key component for one to have legal capacity, whether it is to own property, whether it is even to marry, that someone must be of sound mind. So does that mean that persons with mental disabilities do not have a right to found families? Something very strange. Now I come to women living with disabilities. In my country is what I'll give an example. You'll find a lot of, say, women with mental disability. Probably they are living in the street or somewhere there. But then you'll find them with children. So I find it a bit strange that if these persons have been incapacitated by the law to found families, how did they find themselves with children? It means there is somebody going out without parental responsibility and leaving parental responsibility to someone who is already incapacitated by law to have that family. So now I go to what we can do, because we are in this forum, we are not lamenting. We are coming up with solution. Now, personally at our congregation level, I'm a Franciscan, we run something called Bake for Life. So Bake for Life is a project that we do where we establish bakeries for persons with disabilities. So that is what we do. We have I think around 4 bakeries, and here all the persons working in these bakeries are persons with disability, but with a special focus on women. Number two, the special schools that the church establishes. Again, where I work in the diocese, we have tried at least to have a number of special schools where persons with disabilities can be empowered. Now, what we are still lacking is inclusion of persons with disability in leadership, and particularly the church leadership. And why is it sometimes so? Sometimes it's because from the stigma that these people suffer, they are not even known by the community for them to become leaders. So I invite you to have as a conscious remembrance that not everybody in the community enjoys the physical fitness that you enjoy or the mental fitness that you enjoy, and always consider them as persons worth of human rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sister Teresiah. You know, as you were talking, I just also set my mind back. We have interpreters for French, for Islamic, but we don't have anybody with a sign language. No provision made for that first. Let it be that we don't have them. She has noted the fact that we don't have people with disability in this gathering, which is an omission, isn't it? If we are talking about inclusivity, then we have to include everyone, even if it is just one person. One person. We just finished a pilot project with CBM Global on persons with inclusivity, especially people living with disability. And for me, it taught me a lot of lessons. And that's why when she started, I was very conscious of the fact that I have not seen anyone here who they said, oh, for those who have disabilities, we have sign language here. So we have to be conscious of it in the programs that we run, even if it is one or two, not just the physical or the mental one. There are people living with albinism. Those two are part of people living with disability because they are stigmatized. So let us let it be one of the conscious effort and actions that we might have to take away. It is not my duty to make conclusions, but I just wanted to raise that because it is important for us to note. I now go to the other side of the panel. Right? The young side, yes, I know the young side. Dr. Pearl Kupe is the International President, Global Forum of Women Entrepreneurs, Botswana, and she's going to be talking. Botswana, is that not true?
Yeah, well, my mother's from Botswana, but
oh, okay, that's what I have. It's okay. I'll give you that. But that's what I have here. Sorry, that's good. Your mother is from here. I like that. Your mother is from here, from Botswana. And she's going to be taking us through the importance of, some of the challenges faced by women and youth and the role of Ubuntu.
We have another one.
thank you. Hello. Thank you very much, Sister Ngozi, and thank you to all my sisters here who have presented before me. I wanted to focus a little bit on Ubuntu because, first of all, Ubuntu is a Zulu word. And so I want to dig deeper into the actual meaning. I know many of us have talked about I am because you are, and it actually has a very, very heavy meaning. I think it's very important for us to understand the meaning, the real meaning, authentic meaning, so that we can actually understand that that's what we need as a solution. And especially as talking about Africa, as Sister Ngozi has already said, we need African solutions for Africa. the time for importing solutions that are not custom made and fitting for us here, I think it's over. So Ubuntu, I'm going to really focus on that. And I'm going to start by just telling a very quick story. A story is told about a professor, a Western professor, who came from abroad and went to an African village. And there he found some children playing. And he said to them, I've got a bag of sweets or candy, depending where you come from. And he said, I want the first person, he pointed to a tree, and he said, the first person to get to that tree is going to win this bag of candy. He said, do you understand? They all said, yes. He said, are you sure? They said, yes. And so he said to them, okay, on your marks, get set, ready, steady. And the minute he said go, they all took their hands. And as they took their hands, they all ran in unison. And they all went and touched the tree at the very same time. And the professor was quite disappointed. He said, you didn't understand. You didn't get the memo. And they said, yes, we did. He said, no, you didn't. They said, no, it's you who didn't understand. He said, what do you mean? They said, well, it's not a win unless we all win. It's not a win unless we all win. That is the meaning of Ubuntu. It's not a win unless we all win. So all of them were able to get a sweet. And that, if we understand Ubuntu from that perspective, we will understand that that is the solution. So Ubuntu is about core values: respect, dignity, compassion, solidarity, justice, responsibility, equality, collectiveness, relatedness, reciprocity, love, respect, helpfulness, community, caring, dependability, sharing, trust, integrity, unselfishness, social change, interconnectedness. All these adjectives actually describe Ubuntu. And somehow as Africans, we've managed to take all these powerful adjectives and capture them in one word. So if Ubuntu means we all win, then why is it we're not winning as women and youth? And we know there's so many issues. I don't want to, again, get into the lamenting, but try and get into some of a couple of things. But first of all, a question I want to ask is, where is the political will to ensure that a proper environment is created in which women and youth can thrive? Regional protocols like the SADC Protocol on Gender have failed us. They've been signed for more than 3 decades with goals. They keep shifting and moving the targets. AU commitments have borne very little fruit in improving the situation. Gender-based violence against women is on the increase. FGM, harmful practices in operation, limited access to education, healthcare for women and youth, cultural norms, poverty, lack of resources, restricting women's access to quality education and health care services. So I think one of the things we need to do going forth is really looking at how do we go forward. One, we need to let go of a culture that promotes and encourages individualism and selfishness. We need to go back to a culture that says everybody must eat, and that's the culture of Ubuntu, a culture that promotes distribution of a nation's resources to everyone and not just a few. We need to go back to practices that are rooted in Ubuntu, unity-based practices such as we have something called Motselo. Motselo. In Afrikaans, they call it stokvel. Stokvel. Motselo. I think in West Africa, they call it susu. Is it susu? Susu? Yeah. Which is a village practice out there where women would gather together. Women would gather together and they would be able to collect money, and they have a one pot. And each month it goes to one woman. She will buy a goat and she'll buy something that will enable her to start a business. The concept of withhold, we have something called withhold. It actually came from that concept. It's an Ubuntu-based practice. And we need to go back to those practices and add technology to them to make them relevant for this season. But those are the practices that ensure that the whole community benefits. So we need to look at such Ubuntu-based practices that benefit especially people at grassroots level. Our Global Forum of Women Entrepreneurs is looking at all those issues, projects. We believe in active citizenry. And active citizenry is connected to Ubuntu. Active citizenry means you don't wait for the government to take charge. It means you mobilize the people in the community and they take charge for their own responsibility. If there are potholes there, then you come together as a community and you fill the potholes yourself. So active citizenry is very, very important. Like my sisters. Like my sister said also, we need to explore and interrogate lessons learned from the continent. This will be my last point. From the continent. There are nations, couple of nations that are doing well. My sister already, Njeri, mentioned one of them. Rwanda, doing very well in the area of strong economic growth, improved healthcare, rebuilding her infrastructure, public institutions. She's done very well in environmental protection and business environment. 64% women in key decision-making posts. She's got 63.75% of women in parliament in Chamber of Deputies. Could that be one of the reasons for Rwanda's success? Let's pause and let it sink in for a minute. Those are some of the things, critical things that we need to ponder on. Women's issues are not going to be addressed if women are not in leadership positions and we don't know really, people don't know why they're suffering. And just the last thing I want to say, just in terms of youth, is as Africans, we really need to have a mindset change as Africans. We come from a culture of saying that children must be seen and not heard. And that narrative needs to change. The youth must not only be seen, but they must be heard also. And the narrative of seeing youth only as our future must change. They must be seen also as our present. And when we begin to see them as our present, we will not exclude them from important discussions and initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pearl. I didn't want to stop you because when you started the story of Ubuntu, it resonates very much with us as African women, or men and women in Africa. You know, those midnight stories that we tell around the fireplaces and things, we are losing all those. Our culture, those rich cultures that we have in Africa. I'm sorry I'm taking it back because this has to do with with Africa, our own here. But we are losing those things. So then I go back to the morning session and the youth that challenged us this morning. We actually need to bring them on board. He said they don't want to hear that the leaders of tomorrow. They are the leaders of today. And we cannot have those leaders of today if we don't groom them, if we don't mentor them. So thank you very much for that. I hope we'll have time for all the other questions. And then I come to the youth. And I know they will have a lot to say to us, but all within the time frame of what we have. I turn to Raquel Bennett, and she is a fellow, a common word among the youth from Brazil. Are you from Brazil?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, from Brazil all the way. And she's going to be talking to us about the importance of youth intentionality and leaving no one behind. Over to you.
Exactly. So thank you so much, everyone, and thank you for the meaningful discussions that we've been having here. First of all, as has been said, I'm representing Ngoepe, a common word among the youth. We have been in this forum, and we are going to be here the rest of the days. So my first thing to say is that we have a lot of young people doing a lot of meaningful stuff in this forum, so pay attention to them. But one thing that I would like to talk to you is leaving no one behind, intersectionality, and how does this relate to bringing young people to the table? First, I would like to make a quick question to the youth in this room? I'm happy to see that we have a lot of young people in here. How many of you contribute to interfaith work on your daily lives? Just raise your hand. One, okay, we have a lot of people. Now, how many of you feel included in decision making? Good. Women, young women, how many of you feel included in decision making? We have one. Two. I think we can see an issue here. And the reason why I wanted to do this in this room is to show that even in here, inside interfaith multicultural spaces, it's a challenge for us to be included. It's a challenge for us to be able to speak. It's a challenge for us to be in the decision-making spaces. And this has everything to do with leaving no one behind. We've heard from the plenary a lot about leaving no one behind. And I would like to say that to leave no one behind, we need to include the 30% of people that we have in this world, which is composed by the youth nowadays, so people below 30-year-old. I would like to say that to include that, we also have to be intersectional. How many of you know what is intersectionality? A lot of people, but I would like to say what is this concept and how we can also include them and also relate this to the youth and to leave no one behind. Intersectionality is when you can see the different layers that someone represents. So for example, I am Brazilian, so I'm a Latina, I am a woman, I'm a young woman, and I'm Afro-descendant. So these are different layers that I represent. And by representing them, the society, and even my representations inside forums, in my religion, inside society, and etc., are influenced by every layer that I represent. What do I mean by that? Leaving no one behind means that we need to pay attention to these layers. We need to make sure that we are including the different people, so youth, women, Afro-descendant people, indigenous people, and making sure that they are not only here, seated, watching it, but making sure that they are speaking, that they are making decisions, that they are part of our projects, and that they feel included. So my invitation for all of you today is that may we not only include people to the table, but may we also include them after this forum to our activities. May we consult the youth as well on what they want to do, because we are the future, right? And we are already leading right now, but we are definitely going to be the leaders of the future. So I would like to say with that we are represented everywhere in this forum, and that we may not only be seen, but also heard, and invite meaningful contributions and collaborations between the generations. So that's what I would like to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Raquel. You know, at times it's always good to listen to those who are involved. You are talking from the point of view of the youth. Those of us who now, you belong to the generation Z, isn't it? And those of... Oh, are you? Okay. That I've heard now. But there are those of us who are the old brigade. You know, we don't belong to this generation. But it's very, very encouraging. And given some of the issues that we face, not just in on this continent, but globally, the youth, some of them, most of our youth, a lot of work needs to be done with and for them, because many of them are going the wrong direction. With drug, with the ability for, or the intention of making quick money, people are discarding hard work for easy life, whichever way you want to do it. So we have a lot of work to do. And so I'm very, very happy that we still have a lot of committed youths who are willing to drive this process. And that's where you come in, that you help us all to drive this process so that our youth will begin to come back and know that there's meaningful gain in working hard. And we as parents too and elders, we also need to encourage these young ones, because some of us don't even encourage them. We believe that we have made the money, we can spoil them. And in spoiling them with all that they need for the good life, we forget about tomorrow and how they will end. So thank you very much. I still go back to the last of our panelists, who is also going to be talking about the youth, with Jessica Roland. Is she Dolan? Yeah, the Roland. I want to get her. Yeah. Jessica Roland is a senior specialist for inclusive peace, the Network for Religious and Traditional Peacemakers from the United States. And she's going to be talking on that. The Network of Religious and Traditional Makers advances the inclusion of women, youth, and marginalized groups from the local to the global levels. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I have so much wisdom that I'm building on. My role at the Network for Religious and Traditional Peacemakers, I always say I have the best job. I wear many hats, but I work with women, young people, and marginalized groups, either from a faith perspective or an indigenous perspective. And our job is really to be bridge builders, bringing the grassroots to the global levels, whether that's, and it's always through our members. So some of the members you may know, Seed, URI, Religions for Peace, they're all members. So our job really is being able to bring those working at the grassroots levels to these global spaces for advocacy, to share their research, to help with the programming, right? All these great things. So part of what we do is peace mediation. So I'm going to talk about women in peace building as broadly. So I started about 5 years ago in this role, and we do a course called the UN Religion and Mediation course. And my first time coming into this course, guess what I found? Those religious actors they brought to the room, older men with the big hats. Maybe 2 women, no young people. So, okay, what's up with this? What's the problem? The UN, you're supposed to be inclusive, right? So, understanding that challenge, not only about getting those who we needed in that space, I said, okay, we need to unpack what are the unique challenges and gaps and needs of women and youth doing peace mediation work, because clearly there's something that they're not in this room. So we developed a course specifically for women faith-based mediators and youth faith-based mediators. So why is it important that we have women and youth in peace mediation? So I don't like talking all the same time, so I really want to engage you. So let me ask you something. Who's heard, it's about 10 years old now, but who's heard of the quote, peace agreements are 35% more likely to last at least 15 years if women are signatories to peace processes? Who's heard this? Raise your hand. A good point. Okay, let me ask you this. Who's heard of peace agreements are 65% more likely to last 20 years if youth are involved in signatories as peace processes? Raise your hand. Good. Nobody raised their hand. That was a trick. That's not a quote. No, I want to make sure you're paying attention. Unfortunately, we don't even have the data for youth involvement in peace mediation. And the quote I gave you about women is 10 years old. So we already see the gap there. So then what's the problem? Why is this the problem, right? 2023, we only had 13.7% of mediators as women, and only 26.6% as signatories to peace process. This is a choice, right? This is a deliberate choice at this point. So why is it important that they're there? It's how they lead. It starts in your home. It starts in your community, right? As women and young people, we start from different positions of power. It's all power. And so if we are taught to be able to get along with each other, how to maneuver, how to have dialogue. If we're coming from different places of power, we're going to lead differently. And so let me give you a couple of examples of some of the women faith-based mediators and how they lead differently. So there was a woman faith-based mediator from Cameroon. She was mediating a table of all men. And of course, they had the views of, oh, women are emotional, she can't do this job. And so they tried to rattle her. They're yelling at her. And instead of getting upset, instead of breaking down, she just took a moment and started to pray. The men didn't know what to do. They just stopped. They silenced. But it was a way for her to gather the table and recenter, right? That's one example. Another example, there was a woman faith-based mediator from Nigeria. To center the trust at the table, she came to the room and she said, why? So everyone was wondering, there was an empty chair. Why is there an empty chair? And she said, this chair is for God. He's watching and listening to all of you. Now, I'm not going to sit in God's chair. Technically, I'm going to sit back down. But these kinds of tactics, these types of strategies, the voices that they're raising that are never there at the table, this is why it's important that they're leading differently. The same with young people. When they come to the table, they're bringing other young people. They're bringing intergenerational cooperation and partnership to the table, right? That's inherent in what they do. So it's important that we have that. And we have now a youth in the South Sudanese mediation process right now. I hate to say like the one youth, but we're making progress. So I'm going to stop, but I just want to invite you all. This October is the 25th anniversary of the 1325 Women, Peace, and Security Agenda. And the Secretary General has asked for anybody who wants to make a common pledge to advance women mediators and peace builders. So anybody can do this. We're going to have a big event online, I can tell you more, highlighting women and young women faith-based mediators. But I invite you all to advance the cause.
Thank you very much, Jessica. You know, it's very good to listen to the different perspectives, and that's what I said at the beginning of this session, that we want to listen and we want to share our experiences. Now, I want to, how much time do we have?
We have 25 minutes.
25 minutes, plenty of time. So I'll come back to you, but before then, let us have questions or comments from the floor. So, how many? Oh, plenty. Okay, we'll just address it to any one of the panelists you want to address the issues. Now we have one. I'll give numbers. We take the first four. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll come back to you. We have some time. So, 1. Yeah. She's one.
Is it working? Okay. Thank you so much, Sister Ngozi, and the very powerful panelists. It was nice listening to you and the very beautiful insights coming from you. I have a question to any of you. I come from a country that has very good policies, legislative frameworks in place, and one being that is a constitutional right that women, not more than 2/3 should be in the same, it says not more than 2/3 of the same gender should be in the elective position, automatically giving space for women. And 2, there are legislative pieces against harmful cultural practices. But as I speak to you now, women in some communities in my country still face this challenge of harmful practices that still derailed them from being part of the table that we are talking about. How then, as faith actors or faith groups, put to the duty bearers to really bring up these women, given the cultural pushbacks that I witness in my country? Thank you.
Thank you. Number 2. I think we'll take the first 4, then the answers, then we'll take the next group. Number 2, yeah, that's the gentleman there.
Thank you so much for the discussion. For me, coming into this session, my space was I wanted to really listen from like most of it from women in different types and different space, and I've come to understand a huge understanding on what women are seeking for. And from a man, and as a man, sometimes something that I challenge my fellow men to also do is about that space to listen. I come from a family that I was raised by 5 women, and it gives me that understanding on, I might not know how women feel, but I can understand the situation. A lot of words that has been talked to, I connect it with the Bible, for example. There are some phrases that I think that in the world we need to erase. Like we have a phrase where it says, with every strong man, there's a powerful woman behind them. But the Bible doesn't teach that. For example, if we look at Adam was taken from the rib of, Eve was taken from the rib, but Eve was beside Adam. It's not behind Adam. If we talk about every space, we need to have women beside men in most of these spaces that we are discussing, not behind, because there are certain phrases that we project in the world that it makes other young men to also feel that, oh yeah, they are always kind of like that behind. I like the Ubuntu also phrase because it's something that represents what our first president of Ghana mentioned, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. He said, Ghana's independence does not mean nothing if it does not benefit the whole of Africa. That is a real representation of what Ubuntu is also talking about. Africa, in order for us to develop and grow, it needs to be that solidarity beside, we need to work together. And today's space of listening to all of you, I'm so inspired, and I'm so happy that other fellow men are also here to actually listen, because normally, for me to come to this space, it was very challenging because sometimes, it's women conversation. And then it's like, you cannot speak, but I'm so happy that my fellow men are here to actually enjoy these discussions, because sometimes we talk too much, and sometimes we occupy the spaces. Sometimes women are also, I see from the perspective of men, are seen as, we use them as tokenism. It's like, we put a woman there, she was talking, didn't you see? We gave them the space. So, but my question that I'll just wrap it up for you is, how do you make sure, or how do we men, in a way support? Because I feel like we need to also do as much work as possible in order to get your words to be listened to. So that is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take number 3, but before number 3 question, I would like to just comment on something you've said. I'm not a theologian, but you see, that scripture passage you mentioned, it's the second creation narrative. And as much as possible, men who are the custodians, like in the church, my Catholic church, men are the custodians of scripture. And they always forget the first creation narrative. In the first creation narrative, Genesis 1:27, we were told that God created them, male and female, equal. But after some time, the men woke up and then decided to create this other second narrative of taking the woman from the rib of taking the rib, and then encased it with flesh, and then created woman. You see, let's not go in. When I say it, people say, why do you have to talk like, but that is the truth about it. So let's always think, when you think of that and you want to narrate it to your friends or please start with the first creation narrative, because that's where it started. Genesis 1, chapter 20, verse 27. Thank you very much. Number 3.
Thank you, Sister Ngozi. Thank you to the panelists as well for their very thought-provoking points, especially our fellow youth. My question stems from what Dr. Pearl Kupe mentioned when she was speaking about Ubuntu. She mentioned that if we all don't, I think she said it's not a win until we all win, right? And this question is not directed to anyone in particular, but I am very interested to know what is the role of the interfaith space, or the Interfaith Forum, in addressing the rising issue of femicide in South Africa and around the world. I think beyond issuing statements, maybe as individual institutions, churches, synagogues, or mosques, what is it that the interfaith space or group can do in making sure that government understands the value and the danger that women are facing right now where, yes, we dream of being in these spaces, but we're constantly living in fear. And I don't think I've ever seen like an interfaith collaborative statement or campaign to address this rising issue for safety for women's lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We take the last question and then give. No, we're coming back after the replies, the responses from the panelists, which I hope will be short.
Thank you so much, the panelists and the moderator. In fact, you have already started answering my question already, because my question really is, we have got other teachings. I'll give an example of Christianity, whereby they place men as the head of everything, especially from the book of Ephesians 5, verse 23, whereby it talks about being a man is a head. In addition to that, I've also seen other faith-based, like, for example, Muslims in my community, whereby even the women has become like a culture for women to place men as the head of everything, which also impact in terms of women's leadership, in terms of making decisions. So my question was like, how can we reinterpret these teachings so that we can empower, we should empower women rather than considering them as restricting them. Yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Thank you very much for your question. Now, I get back to you. Whoever wants to answer any of the questions or comment on the comments made, you are now free to do that.
Yeah, I'll be brief. That we have, I'll start with the first question, that we have legal frameworks that prevent GBV, gender-based violence, and especially the female genital mutilation. But then it's not adhered to. And why is that so? I will go back to the drawing board, that who are the majority in the parliament? Who are on the table? They are the people who don't feel it. So they will impose on others. One of the work we do with the foundation, Hilton Foundation, is to help curb female genital mutilation in areas that are rampant, like Tanzania, Kuria region, and Kenya the same. But then when we were trying to do the efforts, we realized that when it comes to campaign, all the efforts we've done go to drain, because the men will come and say, it is our tradition that women should go that to become mature, to become adults. And then they make it, everybody buy it, that we are losing our tradition. But what is this tradition? It is oppressive to the woman. So my point before I give others is that we should reconstruct or destroy the cultural, social, religious stereotyping. Because as you are saying, all religions say man, our religion and Muslim, of course, man is the head. Those are stereotyping. Can we do away with those stereotyping that construct men to be oppressive, or rather a woman not to be elevated? Because we know women is the crowd of humanity. No woman, no humanity. But then how do we treat that crowd?
Okay. I love the contextual theology questions coming up, and it's perfect timing. And another one of my hats, I'm the co-chair of the Gender Working Group for the UN Multi-Faith Advisory Council. So we advise the UN Interagency on Religion and Development. And something that we discovered from CSW and the revitalization process this year is we wanted to unpack the pushback that we were seeing on gender equality, but specifically from some of the faith movements. So we did analysis earlier this year to be able to unpack what it was, because they're clearly united in their messaging. And we wanted to be able to unpack what some of those issues were. And I'm very excited that we'll be coming out with a compendium that's going to be developed at CSW next year, but we have a launch event next month that will be online and in person during the UN General Assembly that will actually give positive faith-based narratives to be able to counter some of these regressive narratives. So this is going to help us all be able to push back. But just some of the things that came up, some of the arguments. Why is women's human rights being pushed over other rights? Why do some people feel that motherhood and the family is being diminished over other things, right? But unpacking where some of these narratives are. So I'm really excited that we're going to do that next month, but I can share that.
Thank you. I'm just going to make a few comments which I think will address maybe one or two of the inputs that were made. One, I also think that as women, there's a certain level of accountability that we need to take. And one of them is in terms of raising our children. We all know that we, in many instances, especially the African woman, is oftentimes the primary caregiver. So to what degree are we perpetuating some of the stereotypes? When your children come home from school, does the boy go out and play soccer and the girl must come and wash dishes and clean the house? So we must take one. That's one of the accountabilities we must also take, because sometimes we're perpetuating that. Secondly, what I also wanted to say, accountability, I talked about active citizenry, that if you're going to wait for leaders always to do things, so to what degree do we also need to take accountability for doing things differently? And I'll give you some examples. I've been saying to women, I said, there are many ways of getting around the mountain. It's not always going over. Sometimes you need to go around it. Sometimes you need to go through it. Education issue. In Zimbabwe, I have a good friend of mine. Zimbabwean women were not accessing education. So she started a university. There's a women's university in Zimbabwe just for women. Banking, same thing. Women were not able to access loans, even though we know statistically that women are actually the ones who pay back the loans. But because of legislative reasons and stereotypes, they weren't able to access loans. Started a bank also for women. We have Global Forum of Women Entrepreneurs, which now enables women to mobilize and be able to collect their own money. Those are some of the initiatives that we actually need to, in the meantime, while we're waiting for laws and legislation and political will, because these protocols have been there for years, like I said. SADC protocol on gender has been there for 3 decades, and the targets and goals keep moving. And we're all signatory, and then they say, no, 2020, and then no, it's 2030, AU. So in the meantime, what responsibility are we taking to mobilize ourselves and to alleviate some of these issues, poverty, access, make our own finance, all of those things. So.
So, as Jessica said, perfect timing. I was thinking a couple of things after you said a couple of things about masculinities and how to be a positive male. And I would say that not only what Dr. Pearl has brought to the table about how do we raise our children, but we as youth, as we grow up and in our communities, in school, at work, at church, how do we lead by example? So to the men in here, how are you an example of a positive male? Because I believe that communities sometimes have a lot of challenges. But if you are a good example of a male, and then you talk to your other male friends, just like you said, you are here with a group of male friends to hear on women, this is so powerful. And I would like to also connect that to the power of community for women as well. I think most of the issues that have been brought here, if we are together as women, so if we are together as men that want to be positive male, it's a very strong position. And that's also how we start to influence public policy. And that's how we influence as well real change. So how to be a transformative leader in your reality can be by either raising your children differently with different stereotypes, or it can be by
inviting your friends, your community to think differently and to even see you as an example. So that's what I would like to bring. Thank you so much.
Quick comment. To address the challenges, I think we need to think on different levels. We need to think on a policy level. We need to think on an awareness level. We need to think on a mobilization level. But we also need to think on a relational level, relationship. Just a very practical example of a colleague of mine. He's a white male in his 50s. He made a commitment to himself. In a group like this, he will never ask for the microphone before a woman spoke, before a young person spoke. And other marginalized people spoke. And that comes from a relationship with women and understanding on a very deep level what exclusion looks like.
Thank you.
I'll take a question, and that of the lady there, briefly.
Okay, thank you. I will be brief. I actually don't have a question, I have a statement, a quick one. And to say that I'm from Israel, and in the Jewish faith, the redemption will come from the woman. So I want to say thank you for all the entrepreneurs, women over here, and the powerful women, for your wisdom, and please continue to lead and to initiate that type of dialogues and also actions. So thank you.
Okay. Okay, mine is not a question, but is how we can mobilize ourselves. It's a solution, which, in South Africa, and I think in most of African countries, we have a huge pandemic of gender-based violence. And most of the time we're saying, what is government doing about it? We have within ourselves as women, we've got women who are lawyers. We've got women who are psychologists. We've got women who are social workers. We have women who are therapists. My call and my request is that we form a network of professional women to assist in addressing the scourge of gender-based violence. Mental health, the mental health of our society is very important, and it takes women to actually address those questions. What is happening to women who are social workers? Where are they? What is happening to counseling within the home? So I'm requesting women here who are professionals. I'm a lawyer by profession. Yes, I'm finishing now. I'm asking us, in all our profession, financial literacy, banking, how do we teach, to form ourselves into a network of women, professional women, to address the scourge of gender-based violence. Thank you.
Quickly, just a quote that I love from Maya Angelou: "I come as one, but I stand as 10,000." There are many women that I interact with on a grassroots level who will never make it to rooms such as these. And for you specifically, Sister Ngozi, I would love if you could give a word I could give back to them about how to stay motivated when you feel as though impact that is global is more recognized than what you do at a grassroots level. Thank you so much.
Jessica, just one word. Something you want to take, will have to take away from this conversation.
Mobilize.
Yes. Thank you.
I would say advocacy.
Thank you.
I have to teach you Zulu before you leave here. So she talked about you strike a woman, you strike a rock. So in Zulu, it's watinta mfazi. Can you say that? Watinta mfazi. Watinta mbogodo. Watinta. Go home with that.
Thank you. We have one here.
My word is don't underestimate the small things, the small steps.
Women are the crowd of humanity. Without them, no humanity.
Inclusivity.
Before we leave this room, I want to thank all of you very sincerely for your patience, for staying with us to the end, and for making this session very lively. You know, when we talk about women's issues, it's always very challenging and difficult. I remember how in Ethiopia, I had to ask the difficult question, how come the women's issue is not one of the priority areas? And I was given an answer. I think that's one of the reasons why they made sure that this session is included and on the first day. So we have to keep asking. We have to keep taking our space. If you get there and there's no seat for you, please, when you're going, make provision, a plan B, get your own seat and find a space to sit down. So thank you all very much. And to the panelists, I say thank you very, very much for your wonderful contributions. I'm glad that I have you. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you. And to our volunteers, those who recorded and those who will keep us going, thank you. Thank you very much. We need to take